In the years leading up to the moment the FBI shut down his encrypted phone company in 2021, Jean-François Ypes made a small fortune. He lives in a luxurious $9 million house in a posh Vancouver neighborhood with a spectacular view of English Bay. Was he aware some of the money fueling his lavish lifestyle came from criminal activity? To sell his phones and collect money, Ypes relied on a handful of distributors. The largest ones were based in Vancouver and Toronto and had hundreds of resellers around the world. Richmond, BC is where the top distributor of Sky ECC phones was located, a company called Solid Communications, operating out of this office building on Viking Road. Solid Communications was co-owned and operated by Tuan Phan, known as Tommy Phan. Phan had ties to criminals. According to information obtained by French authorities, a company owned by Phan received 45,000 euros from a company linked to a notorious international money launderer based in Dubai, Altaf Kanani. He has laundered billions for drug cartels and terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and the Taliban.
So here we have this little entity selling cell phones that are encrypted, and now they're connected to one of the biggest transnational organized crime, state-sponsored terrorist organizations in the world. I would say that's pretty significant.
Tommy Phan had other dubious connections. We discovered that on June 6, 2017, he incorporated a company at the exact same address on Viking Way with a man named Aiden Sin, a convicted drug trafficker. Just 2 weeks later, Sin was arrested by police and was convicted in the U.S. of arms trafficking. Sin was using Sky ECC phones to conduct his criminal activities.
It's very significant, and now we see, Mr. Ypes' organization, where he has a distributor who's working with a criminal.
We tried to reach Tommy Phan by phone and email.
The person you're trying to reach is not available.
We sent him registered mail and even knocked on his door.
No, he's not home.
He's not home now.
To no avail. Jean-François Ypes' American lawyer argues that Sky Global's distributors were not a problem.
I can tell you through our own investigation, to this day, as I sit here, we're not aware of a single distributor or owner of any distribution company that has had any legal problems outside of the pending investigation. So, for example, no criminal histories, no issues with drugs or trafficking.
So, is it true that not a single distributor of Sky phones has a criminal record? We headed to Toronto to look into another top Sky ECC distributor, Global Wireless Solutions. From their headquarters in Mississauga, the company managed a network of nearly 350 resellers and agents around the world. Court files reveal that the company's owner and directors all had criminal records. Domingo Schonebug, who French officials say run the company, was convicted for drug trafficking in 2006. Long Min Mason Vo, a founder, shareholder, and director of the company, was convicted for drug trafficking in 2003. Terry the Nguyen, a founder and director of the company, was also convicted for drug trafficking and has a long criminal history.
So my name is Dominic Chong. I'm a retired police officer from the Ontario Provincial Police. I spent 18 years working in Asian organized crime. So Terry Nguyen grew up in Alexander Park, right here, and he therefore became a member of the Asian Assassin Gang.
In 2005, Nguyen drove to Windsor, Ontario, with heavily armed members of the Asian Assassins Gang. They targeted this house and committed a violent home invasion that ended in a 3-hour standoff with police. Nguyen was sentenced to 5 years in prison and banned from ever possessing firearms. 10 years later, in February 2015, Nguyen incorporated Global Wireless Solutions and began distributing SkyCC phones. But his links to Toronto gangs put him right in the crosshairs of a bloody war pitting the Asian assassins against their rivals, the Chinpaks.
Right now, the hunt for 2 masked gunmen who opened fire inside a busy downtown restaurant.
So in 2015, Terry Nguyen and his girlfriend were having dinner here at the steakhouse. They were approached by somebody that walked right up to their dining table and shot at both of them.
Police and paramedics rushed to the scene inside the restaurant. Chaos.
Even though Nguyen was the target, he was arrested because he was carrying a loaded handgun. After serving 2 years in prison, Nguyen went back to distributing SkyCC phones at Global Wireless Solutions, despite his gang ties and violent past making headlines. He even participated in group chats with Sky Global's upper management in Vancouver, including Jean-François Yip.
What does a distributor bring? Well, a market. They bring people that can purchase and utilize the service and devices that you have. What kind of people is he bringing? You know, he spent 2 years in prison and then suddenly he's working in the company.
Global Wireless Solutions Director Mason Vo boasted in a message sent on Sky of having all the N-word and ghetto street guys unlocked, according to information obtained by French police.
The manufacturer of the encrypted phones gets to choose their distribution network. There's certainly, in my view, there's a moral responsibility for them to determine that whomever they choose are secure and are not going to be using them for illegal purposes.
In a statement, Sky Global says it was unaware that those running Global Wireless Solutions had criminal records and expected them to comply with the terms of service. The company says when it learned a distributor, reseller, or end user may have breached its terms of service, it took swift and affirmative remedial action.
You don't need a priest to sell a phone. Anybody can sell the phone, anybody. But to the point, it's really important to keep in mind, the distributor can hire resellers and directors and others that may have background issues, right? And I would submit to you, it's not Sky Global's job to police its independent distributors.
Sky Global's dubious Mississauga distributor also found a lucrative market in Serbia. Global Wireless Solutions sold Sky phones to organized crime, like the Principi Mafia, a criminal group that recruited hooligans in this Belgrade soccer stadium.
The Principi criminal group had like really close ties to the government, and the main man was a man from the police unit who was basically the real boss of the group.
In a quiet rural suburb of Belgrade, the Principi Mafia owned this ordinary-looking house. In the garage, there was a small hidden door. It led to a secret room called the slaughterhouse.
They would just kidnap the guys, and they would just bring them here, torture them here. So far, what we know from the investigation, like 7 murders happened in the house. None of the bodies were ever found because they would use a mincing machine for the meat. so they would literally mince their victims, and they would throw then basically to the Danube River that is nearby.
Gang members exchange photos of their victims on Sky ECC and sent them to their enemies, unaware that police were intercepting all messages going through Sky servers in France.
They really believed it's like 100% safe, and they trusted the Sky system, and they were sure it will never be decrypted, and that their messages and their communication will be like hidden forever.
Global Wireless Solutions sold Sky phones to the Principi Mafia through their reseller in Belgrade, Srđan Lalić. Lalić was not just a phone provider, he was also a member of the gang. That's him on the right.
Our tabloids called Lalić Smiling Butcher because he was himself involved in some of the murders. And one of the most disturbing photos, it was a photo from Sky, you could see Lalić smiling while holding the victim of the organized crime group.
In 2021, police arrested the gang members and used the picture sent on Sky as evidence. Lalić pleaded guilty and is collaborating with prosecutors. Lalić told a French judge that his boss at Global Wireless Solutions said that the main goal, if not the only goal of Sky, is criminal activity. And to avoid legal repercussions for agents, resellers, and Sky itself, he advised them to not publicize this key feature and to not leave any physical evidence, such as messages. No one from Global Wireless Solutions answered our emails or returned our calls.
Hi there, are you Mason Vo?
But we found Mason Vo, a director and shareholder of the company, at his home in Toronto.
Your company, French authorities have suggested that your company has been attached to criminal organizations. Do you have any comment on that, sir?
You know what? No, I don't know what's going on here.
I just want to talk about...
There was nothing criminal at all. So I don't know, right? Yeah, so...
But can you at least talk to me about why you were selling Sky ECC phones to organizations that were known to be criminal, like the Serbian Principi gang?
No, that was not... I don't know. Anyway.
What is your relationship to Terry Nguyen? Because he was made a director of your company, but he was a convicted criminal with criminal activity in regards to the Asian assassins.
Sorry.
When we come back, Canadian police seem powerless to shut down encrypted phone companies popular with criminals.
The Canadian system doesn't allow us to prosecute them. It barely allows us to investigate it, and extremely rarely can we convict anybody in Canada.
"50 years of uncovering the truth."
We have got nothing to hide. We run a squeaky clean airline.
Why do you think you've been accused of obstructing the inquest?
You know, we've been trying to get you to talk to us. Why do you think he wanted to kill you?
The only sexual abuse was by you against your sisters.
Yeah. You're making it sound as if you're selling pantyhose or something. This is a medical device.
Your role in the assassination in Bangladesh in 1975.
50 years of holding power to account.
People have said head should roll. Should your head roll?
Is that an effective use of taxpayer dollars?
These are multi-billion-dollar projects.
We have just been terribly exploited.
Weren't you a kind of partner to that exploitation?
I'd like to have you stop your camera right now, please.
We're on the hunt here for missing millions.
I'm Bob McEwen.
And the next 50 years start now.
what's happening to our town? 6 drive-by shootings in 4 days.
That's not normal.
You want your town back.
We want our kids back.
You guys have helped destroy this country.
There was no plan, but that was not the plan.
If it can happen at Coutts, it could happen anywhere. It's definitely a wake-up call.
The medication has evolved. Have the regulations evolved?
No.
I'm here for your origin story.
They're saying they can't share some information with you.
We can't let billionaires buy our democracy.
54-year-old CEOs should not be hitting on 19-year-old co-op students.
These are serious allegations and you could end up in prison.
My thing is, I'm above everything.
But you can't be above the law.
I'm Mark Kelly.
I'm Stephen D'Souza.
I'm Bob McEwen.
This
is the Fifth Estate.
Jean-François Yip no longer sells his encrypted phones, but he still runs 20 Rogers cell phone dealerships in the Vancouver area. He faces charges in the US and France, but none in Canada. Canadian privacy laws, the Criminal Code, and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms provide a favorable environment to set up such businesses, Vancouver in particular.
Vancouver is known for its technology, but it's also a safe environment to conduct those things.
And Vancouver is a popular place for organized crime, which fuels the market for secrecy.
Vancouver is the center of gravity for state-sponsored activity in Canada, as well as transnational organized crime. Vancouver is considered the Dubai of the West. So you have terrorist organizations, you have triads, you have cartels, all of them operating here with no one enforcing anything.
Securing businesses across the globe for over a decade and recognized by government agencies and cyber experts as uncrackable.
One of the other popular encrypted phone companies to come out of Vancouver was Phantom Secure.
Phantom Secure.
I'm Vince Ramos. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I have a background in the telecom mobile phone industry.
Vincent Ramos was Phantom Secure's CEO.
I think on the surface, a lot of these organizations are able to, portray an image where they're legitimate, they're above board. We see Phantom Secure, the gentleman that was running Phantom Secure, tied to immense criminality.
Ramos even boasted about getting rich by providing phones to the infamous Mexican Sinaloa cartel. In 2013, Australian police were finding more and more of these Canadian encrypted phones in the hands of criminals. They asked Canada for help. So the RCMP set up Project Saturation to disrupt the use of these phones. We showed retired RCMP Superintendent Calvin Krusty internal documents filed in court that described the project.
There was attempts through Project Saturation to try to mitigate some of the threats posed by these encryption companies that seem to be disproportionately based in Vancouver globally, where a lot of our partners around the world were expressing concern to us relative to what was happening. It's in the court records.
3 other companies offering similar encrypted devices were also on the RCMP's radar: Elite Secure, Esoteric, that later became EncroChat, and Jean-François Ypes' SkyECC. But the RCMP noted that it would be difficult to successfully prosecute them, and that the RCMP would increase the likelihood of decrypting their messages by asking Australian authorities to do it because of more favorable legislation there.
The Canadian system doesn't allow us to prosecute them. It barely allows us to investigate it, and extremely rarely can we convict anybody in Canada. Thus, you're seeing the Americans,
Enforcement targeted Ramos and arrested him at a diner in Washington State. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 9 years in prison for having provided encrypted communication devices to criminals. Jean-François Ypes knew Vincent Ramos, according to the RCMP's Project Saturation, calling them associates, saying that they had traveled together a few times. Ypes had also been in contact with the technical supervisor of Phantom Secure. Ypes' lawyers say they weren't close personally or professionally, and that the RCMP got it wrong.
Those companies could not have been any more different. Phantom Secure had a vouching system where you had to, someone other bad guy had to say, you're a bad guy too, so you can use the product. SkyECC was the opposite. Everybody could use the product. Mr. Ypes had nothing to do with any criminal activity or criminal organizations.
I just can't get my head wrapped around that all the criminals knew about it, and I would just have to think that the CEO of the company that's selling it would have the smarts and the intellect to be able to know what was really happening.
In 2020, U.S. law enforcement laid charges against Canadian encrypted messaging platform EncroChat and then against SkyECC in 2021, effectively shutting them down. Many of their users migrated to another encrypted platform called Anom, a platform secretly funded and operated by the FBI.
And so the idea was you take down those 2 companies, everybody goes into Anom, and then you take down Anom and you announce, by the way, everything you were going into the whole time was being run by the FBI.
The criminals using these devices believed they were secretly planning crimes far beneath the radar of law enforcement. But in reality, the criminals were not underneath the radar. They were on it.
I don't think they're going to completely abandon encrypted apps altogether, but I think it's going to be more difficult for them to do it.
Aux trafiquants, le procès SkyECC.
In Europe, over 5,000 SkyECC users have been convicted, and more than 10,000 have been arrested. But not a single arrest has been announced by law enforcement in Canada.
I can't comment on the SkyECC investigation, but the RCMP has put a lot of priority on hard and secure communication. There are some obstacles that prevent us sometimes to intercept the communication and that would allow us to lay charges against someone.
Because of the privacy law, because of our charter, it makes it very difficult for law enforcement to crack down on these aspects of when we're dealing with encrypted devices. Unfortunately, what Canadians enjoy when it comes to freedom and privacy is also facilitating organized crime in the country.
The CEO of Sky Global says he will continue to fight for the right to privacy. Jean-François Yves, his parents, as well as the main distributors of his phones, are summoned to appear at a trial in France, where they are accused of having been messengers for criminals around the world.
"50 years of the Fifth Estate, and now a story from the files."
A university campus was suddenly transformed into a war zone.
The most important story I did at the Fifth Estate is undoubtedly the Montreal Massacre story. The killing of 14 young women, engineering students at l'École Polytechnique in Montreal. This was the first time in the history of mass murders only women had been targeted. On December 6, 1989, Marc Lépine, a young 25-year-old man living in Montreal, entered l'École Polytechnique.
Before shooting, Lépine shouted, "I hate feminists."
I learned a few days after the event that my name was on a hit list that the gunman had left. One of the chilling details of that rampage is that he would make sure that men were out of the way. These were women in his mind that were taking the place of men.
She's dying with fear, and she was alone. She's dying alone. So, and this hurt me a lot.
He shot himself in the head right after stabbing to death his last victim to make sure he would have the last bullet. Trying to uncover who Marc Lépine was actually perhaps my biggest motivation in doing this story.
The Fifth Estate, tonight, 10 years after the Montreal Massacre that shattered the innocence of Canadians, Francine Pelletier looks into the world of mass murderer Marc Lépine.
From the time I found my name on Lépine's hit list, I have felt the need to get inside the man's head.
I think that is very significant, that it was women's liberation that he was after. Marc Lépine was the first incel. He was the first involuntary celibate man. It was a vengeance against what he would never get, not just professionally, but sexually and emotionally. Who would think that 35 years later, this message would still be resonating, but it is.
See more from the past 50 years on the Fifth Estate's YouTube channel. Next week on the Fifth Estate.
I actually have one good, dark, secret. It was a very masculine atmosphere. One of them said to me, "You're a girl, you can't come."
My colleagues at the time, one of them memorably says, "McIntyre, why would you go there? You'd be swimming towards a sinking ship."
Now's my chance to whitewash it.
You know, ambitious people. A lot of egos.
A whole bunch of them showed up here looking for me, anything that they can stop us from showing that documentary.
Suddenly, investigative journalism became extremely popular.
Organized crime, wrongful conviction, corrupt law enforcement.
I wouldn't even describe it as an interview. It's an ambush.
Today, this cannot be done.
What am I going to do if you ask me something I don't like?
I'm not sure I'm going to be any good because I'm used to on this side of the camera.
Can I say
But only when describing somebody you don't like.
Oh, you know what? That's too hard to tell.
That's next week on the Fifth Estate.
This is The National, Canada's newscast.
You walk into the hospital, and what hits you?
The chaos. This is our world. This is The National.
Can I say
Only when describing somebody you don't like.
Let me warm up, though.
What am I going to do if you ask me something I don't like?
I'm not sure I'm going to be any good because I'm used to on this side of the camera.
Now's my chance to whitewash it.
Okay, I'm ready.
To me, it's like a dream that the next name is Margaret Thatcher.
The founder and leader of Bangladesh was killed in a coup.
Aimed a loaded pistol at President Ford at point-blank range today.
Next, it's Wheel of Fortune, a new spin-to-win game of fun and prize.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
And missing too was Jimmy Hoffa, presumed murdered.
Help us find our father.
You have to think about what was happening in the world in the 60s and 70s broadly. There seemed to be trust in government. A lot of that began to erode and erode in a very major way. And then, of course, Watergate happened, which changed the situation entirely as well. Two reporters from the Washington Post seized on that story, which ultimately resulted in the resignation of the President of the United States.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
Suddenly, investigative journalism became extremely popular. Everyone wanted to do it. And the CBC is one of them. And then by 1974, a very visionary leader joined the CBC. He was a pretty young guy at the time, Peter Herndorf. He became head of current affairs. And he had a vision that investigative journalism needed to be done in a more serious and thoroughgoing way.
He used the word iconoclastic, an iconoclastic news magazine that would deal with things of great public importance and interest.
You can draw a direct line between him, between what was going on in Canada and in North America at that time, and the creation of the Fifth Estate.
The Fifth Estate.
When I came, I said that. What's that name all about? What is the Fifth Estate?
And I couldn't get a straight answer right away. It's like people forget after a long time. I mean, isn't the Fifth Estate, the Fourth Estate is the media, is journalism, is it not? And so the Fifth Estate is one step further.
The cold, hard truth is, the Fifth Estate is a terrible name because no one understands what it means. And it's exacerbated by the fact that our arch rivals in broadcasting over at the other network, CTV, have a brilliant name. It's brilliant in its simplicity, W5. Who, what, where, when, why.
Everybody was asked, what do you think the show should be called? And interestingly enough, one of our producers said, oh, God, let's just give it up. Why don't we just call it Apple?
I do know this for a fact. The title only came about 3 weeks before the first show of the Fifth Estate ever went to air.
We did the Fourth Estate, right? And then we thought, well, the Fifth Estate. So then everybody said, we're so tired. We said, okay, let's just call it the Fifth Estate. And, you know, it took.
The reputation for the Fifth, certainly amongst camera people, was this was the brass ring.
One of the things that the Fifth Estate is famous about is the confrontational interview. In the business, we tend to call them jumps.
Put that goddamn thing down, will you? You hear what I'm telling you?
Just easy.
Stop and talk to me for a second. What were you doing with documents relating to the building of an atomic bomb? Thank you.
Mr. Acuna, please don't run away. If you could just give me a minute of your time.
I'm with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Sorry, you're just wasting your time.
What can you tell those families who've been torn apart by flawed tests about what happened and how that could happen in your lab, sir? Doctor, you can't simply walk away. These families deserve some answers.
I hated jumps. I really did. You had to be able to anticipate what your subject might do. You had to read people.
I'm working on a months-long investigation on war criminals from Somalia. We find out that one of the worst war criminals in our story works as a security guard at a car dealership. We jump out of the van, we go up to the man, he's surprised. Mr. Toke, you're accused of being a war criminal. What do you say? And he says, I don't know what you're talking about. He kind of runs away, closes the door. Bang, we got it. Come away, and the cameraman says, oh, I didn't turn on the camera.
From time to time, you'll do what's called a double click. Accidentally, you hit record and then you hit it again. Now you're not recording.
So we go back the next night. This time he's not totally surprised. Same questions, you know, not as good as the first time, but it's still pretty good. He's still, no, I'm innocent. I don't know what you're talking about. Slams the door shut. Cameraman says, sorry guys, it didn't work again. Now we have to go back the third time, right? By this time I feel like telling this accused war criminal, sir, just walk closely, don't look at the camera. We're going to ask you the same questions about being a war criminal. You know, you've done this before. And we actually film it the third time. And that's the scene that actually makes it to air.
I'd like to talk to you about your days as a military commander in Somalia. Sir, there have been some very serious allegations made about you by people in Gibile.
It always looks perfect and clean when you see it on TV, but as they say, the two things you never want to see being made are hot dogs and television.
So I was the first staff cameraman to go on Fifth Estate. I was the eyes. And don't forget those days, the film, it was all film, there was no digital. Every mile was discovery for us. So when you work with a show like Fifth Estate, each story took me someplace I've never been there before and opened a new door. Fantastic.
I think that's the essence of the show. I mean, the researchers who actually had themselves to do a lot of the digging, the show wouldn't have functioned without them.
Access to information is like a series of laws all across this country that help the public know what their government is doing. So these would be basic operation documents. It could also be secrets that the government doesn't want the public to know. When I started in journalism, access information was my main tool for investigating. So I was able to file requests, get them back within 30 days. Now, it takes me months, if not years, to get really basic information back. The result of these delays is that we can't find out what's happening.
It's a job that is somewhat thankless because you're more or less at the bottom of the pyramid. And no one's going to say, did you see the research in that show on the 5th last night?
The way I found out that Inspector Claude Savoie was possibly corrupt was in the summer of 1992. It was off season for the Fifth Estate, and I was exploring for stories.
Dan Burke, like me, a fellow Montrealer who knew a lot of police, but Dan also knew a lot of bad guys. He knew a lot of criminals. He had great contacts. And he came to me and he said, we should do a story on Canada's biggest drug trafficker who never got caught in Canada. His name was Alan the Weasel Ross.
These two drug dealers remember an incident in the Montreal port in the early 1980s.
A friend of mine who had a container of hashish coming from Lebanon, from Europe. He told them that don't go near that container is going to be picked up. He knew it was going to be picked up.
How would Alan Ross know that the police were going to seize a particular container?
I have no idea how he knew, but he knew.
He wasn't an informant, nor was I an informant for him, but I knew him. I met him. Put it that way, I met him.
The day before the story was about to air, I got a call at my office at the Fifth Estate from an RCMP officer in Toronto. He said, at 11:55 a.m. today, Claude Savoie took out a Silvers revolver, wrapped it around his jacket, and put a gun to his head and blew his brains out. That certainly was a validation of the story.
We didn't pull the trigger, but you can't not think that, you know, if Dan Burke and Hannah Gartner and I, if the Fifth Estate hadn't started on this story, if we'd gone on to some other story, that man would still be alive. That's what investigative journalism is about. You better be f***ing sure, because you're playing with people's lives.
Hi there, Canada.
Hi, Suyok.
How are you holding up?
It's been
Prima facie case of fraud. What exactly does that mean for the laymen of the world, like my brother and I? Either there's a fraud or there's not a fraud. Either I'm guilty of murder or I'm not guilty of murder.
So I was heartbroken. I was betrayed. My cousin hurt me, and now I want to hurt him.
Guys kill their, killed their son-in-laws, guys killed their brother-in-laws, guys killed their cousins, and that's what it takes. You have to be totally ruthless and devoid of any feeling that you show for anybody.
How realistic did you think the expectation that you would capture him was?
I was never trying to capture him. I thought I would kill him. Yeah, I thought I would kill him.
Who said I have 20 wives and 80 children?
Oh, how many wives and how many children do you have then?
Well, I'm certainly not here to talk about my private life.
That's your private life? I got one husband, I'll tell you.
Well, good for you. And I hope you love him and take care of him and don't criticize him and support him and do all the things that wives should do with their husbands.
You're paraphrasing what I said, and it's called hack journalism. It's called hack reporting, and they take a little clip and they focus on that. It is what it is. Carry on. I got the opportunity to stay here and do the Fifth Estate. It's kind of cool. It's kind of nostalgic. I'm kind of fanboying right now.
Yeah, as long as the Fifth Estate's been on the air, people have been trying to shut down, kill our stories, shut down our investigations. They contact our bosses. They'll be, pressuring people not to talk to us or change their story. They intimidate us. So what do? Well, you muster your courage. You fortify your facts. You take a deep breath. Then you say, bring it on.
Gerald Regan, who was the Premier of Nova Scotia and, alleged to have committed many of the same sorts of sexual improprieties that Nygaard did. They're all despicable human beings who are taking advantage of others.
We're talking about an unbelievably powerful man, the most powerful man in the province.
Around here, connections count. Patronage is a way of life. If you want something, it's not uncommon to go right to the boss.
The president of the CBC then, Al Johnson, pulled the plug on it. He told the Fifth Estate to back off.
This was an extraordinary story. We're talking about a man who was a former premier and was a cabinet minister.
Excuse me, I don't care. I don't care whether he was Mickey Mouse. That has nothing to do with it.
Did anyone close to Gerald Regan, anybody in the Liberal government try to intercede, give you a call?
I knew you would come to this, and it's absolutely preposterous.
So we did the story, some 14 years later, and interviewed I think a dozen of his victims. They were children when this happened. Some were 15, 16 years old. They were still nervous and afraid, but it validated what they had been through.
I do remember that you did not want to be in a situation where you were alone with him.
So after the show went to air, I was invited to go down to Halifax to MC some event. I was pulled off to the side and was told, we have a new guest who insinuated himself into the process. Gerald Regan wants to be with the VIPs in the front row at your knee, and he wants you to introduce him. I did not introduce him.
It takes 5 minutes to reach a verdict.
The big question of the new Romanian government, apparently, was whatever happened to the billions and billions and billions of dollars that had been under his control. They should have asked him before they shot him in the garden.
From the start, it was clear that the search for Ceausescu's money wasn't going to be easy. He and his advisors had installed a complex system which diverted most of the national wealth through their hands.
And there was an application before the Ontario courts for an injunction to prevent our broadcast, and it came down like a day or two before. And I remember, the court convened in the boardroom at the Fifth Estate. Judge, the lawyers for all parties. And it became obvious to us that the government of Romania was behind this.
This was an example of of a government trying to stop a Fifth Estate story from proceeding.
Anyway, we appealed it, and in the few days while the court was sort of dealing with the appeal, this became a national, scandalous media story about this unbelievable, brazen intrusion and freedom of the press.
In the 70s, one of the themes that the producers of the Fifth Estate tried to expand on was doing deep dives into the business community, something that media hadn't really done much of up until that point.
How would you characterize the average potato farmer who sells to McCain's?
Smart.
There's a quote about your potato contract. Somebody said that it's a contract written for dishonest people, and that's...
No, it's not dishonest. The farmers in this area aren't dishonest, and you shouldn't repeat that.
That was a quote from your brother.
No.
And there was giant pushback. Letters were written, complaints were made. There were McCain relatives in Parliament at the time.
I mean, I've heard of employees who have made statements before, and within a half an hour of making the statement, there's a phone call to the deputy minister saying so-and-so said such and such. Please make sure he doesn't do it again.
And everyone's telling me that half the population is under the age of 25. And unless you're going after this business, you're not even in this garment business.
Peter Nygard was then, if not the richest man in Canada, certainly one of them. He was a billionaire who had his way, and that extended to sexual harassment and assault. And we started to report back in about 2010.
The Panther parties had nothing to do with trying to find a model. It was basically to procure women so that he would have the pick of the litter to decide who he was going to bet for the night. And that's how it would end.
Peter Nygard has already sued the Fifth Estate in 2 jurisdictions. In New York, he tried to get possession of video we'd shot. He lost. And he sued in Winnipeg trying to stop this story from going to air.
Usually when someone sues you for libel or slander, it's a financial issue. They sue you for an amount of money. That was not the issue when Peter Nygard took us to court, because Nygard had us charged with criminal libel under the Criminal Code of Canada, which meant that if we were found guilty of that libel, we weren't going to owe him any money. What was going to happen was we would be convicted of a felony and be imprisoned. So for 10 years, we worked and did the story under the shadow of imprisonment.
The story that the Fifth Estate devoted almost 2 years of time was the story of the wrongful conviction of Stephen Truscott. Stephen Truscott was Canada's most famous murderer, accused of killing a classmate, 1959, sentenced to hang, goes to prison, disappears after parole, and decades later he comes to the Fifth Estate. We start investigating. And for me, I knew this was going to be probably the biggest story of my career. I get a call from the executive producer at the time, and he says, the host on the story has a romantic relationship with Stephen Truscott's lawyer. We could not do a story attempting to prove the innocence of Canada's most famous accused murderer if the journalist on our story had a relationship with his lawyer. The question was the perception. What would the public think, right? So after a lot of debate and discussion, we said, we have to kill the story. It was one of the worst moments of my career to tell that to the Truscotts. But we waited a long, long period of time, and then we decided with a new host, it was Lyndon McIntyre, we could go back to the Truscotts. It was a clean slate, and we started the investigation again. And in the end, we produced one of the most famous documentaries the Fifth Estate ever did that had huge impact and eventually cleared his name.
We didn't have any female producers for, 3 years, or 3 or 4 years. And it was very, very masculine and macho, and most of the male hosts had terrible alcohol problems. It made them sometimes not at their best, let's just say. One of them said to me, "You're a girl, you can't come." But it never affected me or what I wanted to do.
One of the things I've always prided myself on is that your reputation is what you have as a good journalist. You have to make sure that you got your I's dotted, your T's crossed, that your facts are absolutely correct. The most embarrassing thing for me, and I think for the Fifth Estate historically, was a lawsuit which was the largest lawsuit for libel, probably in the history of Canada. And that dealt with two doctors and a heart drug. First of all, these two doctors wanted a very meager settlement, but an apology. It was appealed to the Ontario Superior Court. And they looked over all of the documentations and they ruled that the judge and all the documentation that they found, that it was right, that the Fifth Estate had done certain things that were libelous and awarded, I think it was close to $4 million. The thing is, it stays with you. And I think it stayed with the Fifth Estate for a long time. And you know, you have a really, really good show, and all you need is one slip up, and people remember that.
Hi there, Canada. How are you holding up? The funny, not so funny thing about the world right now is the thing that can consume your thoughts is the thing you maybe didn't see coming.
My favorite word, tariff.
Minimum 10% tariff on all imports.
Some contracts are already getting canceled.
We're already hearing about layoffs.
Feeling the financial pain of Canada's 25% counter tariffs.
He is trying to break us.
So you have questions.
How should Canadians be preparing for that next trip?
What is your plan?
How seriously are you taking this threat of 100% tariffs on foreign-made films?
A lot of questions.
How is Hamilton bracing for tariff impact?
How much does it cost to be patriotic when picking items at the grocery store?
And while your elbows have been up,
elbows up!
For us, it's the sleeves rolled up. Because you need answers about your neighborhood, your world, your Canada. Our journalists countrywide and all over the world are on the case.
Do you think you're going to have to close?
I hate to think about that.
Where are Canada's allies? Where are Canada's markets? What is this country's place on the planet?
It's the uncertainty that's the biggest issue.
What is the next thing to happen and what will it mean for all of us? Canada, we got you.
I want my money. Today, Lorenzo says he's gonna grab you, he's gonna turn you into a pretzel. And don't with him, bro.
I don't want to with nobody, man.
Just how many more embarrassing videos can there be? This one, recently obtained by the Toronto Star, shows a very agitated and angry mayor of Toronto.
Brother, you've never seen me fucking go, brother. You think so, brother? But when he's down there, I'll rip his fucking throat out, I'll pull his eyes out, I will when he's dead, I'll make sure that motherfucker's dead.
I like to put a fucking make on the mouth of Poland. A few things on.
I did several shows in Ireland at the time of the Troubles. We were in terrible danger all the time, and we never had any protection or anything. Our cameraman was focusing on the terrace houses, which all look very alike. Suddenly, we were surrounded by British soldiers, all with their guns cocked. And for the first and only time in my life, I knew what the taste of fear was. Fear tastes metallic. It tastes like you licked the inside of a tin can, and it just came up in me. And afterwards, we all said to each other, well, we could have died.
We were in San Francisco. We were following this Canadian man who's trying to establish an independent state for Sikhs in India. And we know from a U.S. indictment that allegedly the Indian government had hired a hitman to take him out. And their instructions to him were, kill him and anyone around him. The advice we got from the CBC risk assessment team was that we should wear bulletproof vests and have security with us. We're heading to the venue. I'm in the back of the Suburban, sitting beside him. His armed security are in the front of the vehicle. We're on our way. As we get close to this venue, we get caught up in pedestrian traffic. There's thousands of people here to listen to this man speak. I realize as I'm looking out the window, it would be so easy for someone to step out of the crowd, spray the vehicle with bullets, kill this man, and take me with him.
Mubarak Ali Shah Jalani was charged with international terrorism and so on and so forth. He had a very shadowy organization, shady in every single way. These guys were involved in all kinds of dubious terror schemes, assassinations, and so on and so forth in the United States. The story aired a few months later, called Seeds of Terror.
What are we to make of that?
This is all lies. All lies.
The FBI reached out to me and said, that was great. We've wanted to talk to this guy for a long time. Can you share with us the transcript or the details of the interview that we did with him? It escalated all the way to the exec producer, and it went to lawyers and so on and so forth. Segue 25 years later, the FBI declassified all the documents in their possession, and one document in particular surfaced with my name on it. That was shocked out of my mind that the FBI wouldn't redact my name. A lot of his followers are still active and are still around, and it made me feel very uncomfortable and very insecure about my own security.
There's a famous journalistic expression, and it is that the first casualty of war is truth.
This was just after the first Gulf War. And there was an absolute hue and cry among Americans in particular to get involved. It hinged on a set of hearings by a congressional committee of some kind and by some hearings in front of the United Nations. And in the centerpiece of these hearings was a young woman who appeared on television over and over and over again. She was identified as a refugee from Kuwait. And she was the one that tearfully, on camera, gave the most colorful and dramatic account of what had happened in those hospitals.
They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
And she had a single name, Naira. The problem was we couldn't find her anywhere. Associate producer was sort of so diligent at all of this stuff. She was going through newspapers, Washington newspapers, going back for the longest time to find out, just fishing to see if she could get a clue. Her name was Leslie Fruman, and she sees a picture of the Kuwaiti ambassador to the United States and Canada with his family. And who should be standing by his side? It was his daughter. Nobody knew this. So this key witness to this dubious atrocity was the daughter of the ambassador. So Leslie did what journalists should do. She called the Kuwaiti embassy in Washington. And she says, hi, I'd like for you to arrange for me to be able to have a chat with Naira. And there was a long pause on the end of the phone, and the next thing was, why do you want to talk to her? Well, I'd like to talk about her appearance before the Congressional Committee on this and that and the other thing. Another long pause, and that the sweetest words you ever hear in journalism. Well, you're not supposed to know about that.
And the Emmy goes to the Fifth Estate to sell a war, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, Canada.
Afterwards, I remember walking along the corridor with Lyndon and I and David Frost, who presented us with the award. And David Frost turned to me and said, how do you think I did in the presentation? And David Frost, of course, was famous as a presenter at this time, and it just felt bizarre for David Frost to be asking me how he did, I mean, on stage. But it was a great moment.
But he came up to me, stuck his finger in my face. I thought he was going to bop me, frankly, and said, what you're doing is j'accuse. I guess we were. You accused your son of being a paid co-conspirator in...
I didn't accuse him.
Yes.
I said I feared, and just cool it. I said I thought, and I wasn't going to accuse him. Accuse is j'accuse. That's what you're doing to me now.
Sandy Munro was talking about the son. I brought up the son, and he said the son is terribly mentally disturbed. He's a very sick man.
Rory is not well. I would like you to respect his privacy. I was there in the doctor's office when we were told that he was mentally ill and always would be. I think because of his illness, he deserves a pass on this. I really do.
Well, somebody tells you don't go and talk to somebody, you're on the plane. Rory Munro, as it turns out, is a man who does not want to be found. No phone number, no driver's license, no known address. Figured a guy living on a boat with 3 kids would need groceries, so we started calling around. Bingo. A clerk at a local grocery store recognized the name, and that's how we found Rory Munro.
He was strangling her on the kitchen counter, and he left for weeks. And one of my biggest resentments with my mother had been that she let him back in the house afterwards.
Was she afraid?
Yes. She was afraid of him. We all are.
Sometimes the person sitting across from us isn't telling the truth, but it's not because they're lying.
Canada used to be one of our most loyal friends, and vice versa. I mean, Canada sent troops to Vietnam. Was Vietnam less containable and more of a threat
No, actually,
than
Canada
Saddam
did
Hussein?
not send troops to Vietnam.
I don't think that's right.
Canada did not send troops to Vietnam.
Indochina?
No. Canada, Second World War, of course. Korea, yes.
I think
Vietnam,
you're wrong.
No, it took a pass on Vietnam.
I think you're wrong.
No, Australia was there, not Canada.
I think Canada sent troops. Well, I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Sticks and Stones was a story that actually is resonant today. It's about misinformation, disinformation in U.S. government and media. The next week, she was on the front page of Time magazine, and she called me names. And she said, I don't think he knew. I don't think he knew his Canadian history. Well, it was pretty easy to know more Canadian history than Ann Coulter.
Killers, crooks, cons, bullies, they have a very similar profile. David Reiner was a bookkeeper. He stole less than $1 million, like I think it was $800,000, but he stole it from children's daycare, and it really captured the imagination of the audience. He skipped the country after stealing this money, and he ended up in Africa. We found him. We were going to bring him home to face justice. The night before we leave, he approaches me with an idea.
It's a thought I had last night.
50 years of uncovering the truth.
We have got nothing to hide. We run a squeaky clean airline.
Why do you think you've been accused of obstructing the inquest?
You know, we've been trying to get you to talk to us. Why do you think he wanted to kill you?
The only sexual abuse was by you against your sisters.
You're making it sound as if you're selling pantyhose or something. This is a medical device.
Your role in the assassination in Bangladesh in 1975.
50 years of holding power to account.
People have said head should roll. Should your head roll?
Is that an effective use of taxpayer dollars?
These are multi-billion-dollar projects.
We have just been terribly exploited.
Weren't you a kind of partner to that exploitation?
I'd like to have you stop your camera right now, please.
We're on the hunt here for missing millions.
I'm Bob McEwen.
And the next 50 years start now.
What's happening to our town? 6 drive-by shootings in 4 days.
That's not normal.
You want your town back.
We want our kids back.
You guys have helped destroy this country?
There was no plan, but that was not the plan.
If it can happen at Coots, it could happen anywhere. It's definitely a wake-up call.
The medication has evolved. Have the regulations evolved?
No.
I'm here for your origin story.
They're saying they can't share some information with you.
We can't let billionaires buy our democracy.
54-year-old CEOs should not be hitting on 19-year-old co-op students.
These are serious allegations, and you could end up in prison.
My thing is, I'm above everything.
But you can't be above the law. I'm Mark Kelly.
I'm Stephen D'Souza.
I'm Bob McEwen.
This
is the Fifth Estate.
When someone's very angry, that's an authentic moment. And that's what TV at its best.
Well, Ambassador, you know, we're talking about relations between the two countries. Relations between the two countries have been dominated by the question of the reactor.
I have nothing more to discuss. You can leave.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Because it's a complete violation of what you agreed to.
Do you feel that you should resign?
I'm very sorry. Will you stop that, Ken? I'm very sorry. I really cannot be treated like this.
Questions about the objectivity of your study results.
I won't talk about that.
Why not? It's an important
I'm
issue.
not on this. I'm not going to talk about it.
Well, doesn't the integrity,
No,
doesn't the objectivity...
I'm going to walk out 1 minute.
But you as a reporter want to make up some bullshit. So make it up. It's over with.
I think the beauty of television is you can capture authentic moments with people, and they're gold dust to any film.
You said that you would confront the problem head-on with the unions. Now, the last prime minister who tried to do that...
Can I just correct you? I think that was one of our mandates. We were told that we're going to go all over the world. We're going to find the stories that matter to Canadians, and I think we still should be.
Do you want India to continue as a united entity, or do you want anarchy?
Is there not something wrong with the peace when it creates such division, such predictions of violence in your community, Jew against Jew?
I admit that war unites more than peace. So, shall we go to war in order to achieve union? Or shall we make the necessary compromises in order to enable your children and my children to live in peace?
There's too much presidential power, no true democracy, too few human rights.
What lack of human rights do we have when people are allowed to vote?
Noor Chowdhury says he was not there that early morning of your father's assassination. He says he was not there.
Absolutely lie.
It was possible that Osama bin Laden was in that location. Do you recall that meeting?
Please, I don't even want to comment on what he says. He would be filling in all lies.
Now, this is an interconnected world. All stories are local now. Everything. Canadian angle is such an outdated notion in journalism. We are all in the same boat now. And that boat is in rough waters in a lot of different places. It's just by virtue of the fact that we are all on the same shrinking planet. And we are all related to everybody else. And every story that happens is our story.
It's the CFL's occupational hazards, say players and their families, brain disorders like Alzheimer's, ALS, Parkinson's, and chronic traumatic encephalopathy called CTE, conditions that can be linked to concussions playing football, a toll felt in Ottawa and all around the CFL.
That was a story about concussions in sport, specifically for me in professional football. I played pro football for several years before I became a full-time journalist. And I think my family would tell you that they were fearful of what the impact ultimately of that and all the concussions I suffered, and there were several at least, and the impact all of that would have on my later life.
It was really interesting working with Bob on the concussion story because it was such a personal story to him. A big part of it was literally about the potential damage that might have been done to his brain. You could see that as much as he was willing to open up, there were certain things that were still off limit because it was so sensitive.
Before we go any farther, I should tell you, this is one of the most difficult Fifth Estate stories I've ever had to tell because I'm part of it. For 5 years here at Lansdowne Park, I played for the Ottawa Rough Riders. So I'm a member of that generation of Canadian Football League players, now in the shadow of the condition called CTE.
I don't think it was unfair for me to do that story, though I absolutely had a stake in it, because it just gave me a leg up in terms of who would talk to me. I guess the point of it was the Canadian Football League has not really done what I think it is morally obligated to do to protect its players from the worst of concussions.
The Mark Levine story was about the worst mass shooting in Canada, and in which 14 young women were killed in the École Polytechnique in Montreal. He had a list of women, prominent women, that he wanted to kill, and among them was Francine Pelletier.
I think it was 2 days after the tragic event, the editor-in-chief phoned me and said, had I read the newspaper yet? And I said, no. And he said, well, brace yourself, because your name was part of a list of women's names that was leaked to us, who he said he would have liked to have killed.
The Montreal massacre has changed the lives of many people, as it haunts many more, mine included. From the time I found my name on Lipin's hit list, I have felt the need to get inside the man's head, find out what could have possibly motivated such hatred.
People ask me always, you know, how did you react? I was angry at how this had happened. This is, I think, part of why I get emotional about it. It was Lipin's message. It wasn't just that he wanted to use women as a scapegoat for his anger. He was saying that he was against women's liberation.
I think it's okay for reporters to go into areas where they've had direct experience and tell these stories, as long as they let the audience know where they're coming from, and that it's still based on the facts that you uncover and display. And it can give the film an edge that I think is important, an edge and also an authenticity.
I'm saying this only days after the re-election of Donald Trump. And if there is a lesson there, is that we are not out of it. We are still paying. Women are still paying for trying to be everything they want to be.
When I started in journalism, every city hall across the country was carefully being scrutinized by journalists and legislatures, school boards, and many other institutions. If you go around the country, you will find a lot of these places have no reporters at all sometimes watching what's going on. Well, how can you have oversight? How can you have accountability of what politicians are doing or how governments are being influenced if there's no one there watching?
Well, I think we live in very dangerous times now. What we're facing is unparalleled, where an algorithm can discern so much about people and their beliefs and can then feed them information to foster bias.
The telling of stories, the trying to understand what's happening around us, the search for the truth and the demanding of accountability, that is age-old. That does not change. And so part of that means that as journalists, we have to continue to fight to do that kinds of thing.
When you see the kind of cuts that have been happening over the last few years, it's just one of this painful attrition. And you need investigative shows like The Fifth Estate, like W5, like 16 by 9, like newspapers like the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, and every other newspaper across the country. Where are people going to go when they have been the victims of a major scam, let's say a sexual assault or a sexual abuse in the workplace, or, you know, a police stepping over the line? Where are people going to go? Who's going after the bad guys today?
Truth is the woolliest word in the English language. Everybody has truth as part of their moral makeup. Biggest liars in the world believe in truth. I believe in the word objectivity, which is a very difficult word too. I think you really do have to subtract your own personal preferences from an assessment of a situation to see what's right and what's wrong. Otherwise, you become what we like to call a hack. You become a propagandist. And it's the greatest menace to communication in the world right now.
I think as a journalist, you have to be optimistic to survive in this business. But let's be honest, let's look at the headwinds. We've got the political shouts against us are getting louder. The financial constraints are getting bigger. We're dealing now with artificial intelligence, which makes it harder to tell the difference between fact and fiction. You've got misinformation, you've got disinformation. But because of all those reasons, I think there has never been a time where we've needed the Fifth Estate like we need it now.
We know what stories have to be told. We've told them for 50 years. And in many ways, they don't change much. You know, if you look at Benny Hinn and Peter Nygard and Gerald Regan, they're all the same types of men. And they're mostly men who act the way they do and who need the kind of scrutiny that the Fifth Estate has provided. We work for you. You tell us what you expect from us. You tell us what you want to see on the Fifth Estate in the half century to come.
Good evening. I'm Adrienne Clarkson.
I'm Warren Troyer.
Peter Riley.
I'm Eric Malling.
Bob Johnston. Ian Parker.
Hello, I'm Hannah Gartner. Sheila McVicker.
And I'm Victor Malarick.
I'm Lyndon McIntyre.
Stevie Cameron. Trish Wood.
Hello, I'm Francine Pelletier.
I'm Anna Maria Tremonti. I'm Gillian Findlay.
I'm Mark Kelly.
I'm Stephen D'Souza.
And I'm Bob McEwen. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.
This is The National, Canada's newscast.
You walk into the hospital, and what hits you?
Hi, I'm Arsheen Shamaila. Summer's here, and for many Canadians, that means one thing: road trip. Whether you're crossing the country or staying closer to home, there's no shortage of art, culture, nature, and food to remind us why Canada is worth the trip. Now we're bringing that experience to you with stories from CBC stations right across the country. And we're kicking things off with a few stories about Canadians sharing their culture through art.
Legacy to me is something that is embedded in your core, your essence, who you are. I'm going to leave my children with the roots of not only myself, of the ancestors.
I feel like I'm truly blessed to learn the traditions of being Indigenous and Jamaican. All I know is it feels pretty good when I'm dancing and how I get to impress my mom.
Just always keep that anchored and strong. The one thing that anchored me was my mom always taught me it doesn't matter what this is on the outside. We all bleed red. So don't let anybody ever make you feel anything less than what you are. But we were raised more Aboriginal at that time. Soup, bannock, powwows. I was too black for my native side, and I wasn't black enough for my black side. So I had a lot of who am I, why am I here, what is this about, going on throughout my life. My biological father reached out to me when I was 18, but I was already curious about the other side of me. I just couldn't fight it. In my mind, it was like, it's either you're this or you're that. You can't be both, right? But no, that's what makes me, is both sides. Oh yeah, baby. The music, the culture, my people, the way I felt, my body, my hair, my attitude, my confidence, that all comes from my Black roots, and I can cook. I'm telling you, it's delicious. So I started honoring both parts of who I was.
I like this one. I always took more to my First Nation side because I felt that's where I connected with. That's where I felt, in a sense, that I fit in more. You want to start on your leggings today?
Yeah.
Okay. So in elementary, I just would go to beading class, and then I would go to powwow dancing. I do ribbon dressmaking and regalia on the side just to help out. This is going to be your future, right? And it warms my heart. Seeing the smile on those kids' face means everything to me. It's more than money. Just how much joy they have on their face is the best thing for me. The Jamaican tradition comes from Melody. She's taught the girls a lot.
Feel good? Yep. My role is just to do what sisters do, love, support, encourage, help them to understand who they are and to love who they are. And so I do that from the Caribbean standpoint of view.
Go low! My oldest 3 started Caribbean dancing, and then my baby finally started dancing.
If we can strengthen each other by making our own little additions to our families and makeshift families and add that cultural component in there, then we're just allowing our children to have that strength that we didn't really have.
My mom's proud.
Big arms, all the way.
So there's 4 sisters and we all dance and all my little cousins sing, so it's a real big family affair.
Let's get a family shot.
Biracial diversity has made us a force to be reckoned with. Having Native, which is a beautiful culture within itself, the history to that, and then the Jamaican side, together, oh my goodness, we are, I think it was one of the greatest things that my mom could have ever done.
Here we're gonna do Aiko. So
I dance powwow, so I'm a fancy shawl dancer, and then I've also been doing Caribbean dance since I was about, I think like 11 or 12, so they've both been a very big part of my life, so they've both shaped me into who I am. I'm 20 years old now, so now me and some of the other girls are starting to take that over and carry the traditions on since everybody else is starting to get older, so we're passing it down through the generations, which is really nice to see.
The legacy that I would like my children to take from me to hopefully one day pass on to their kids is keeping that strength within themselves.
I want my legacy to be that my children respect, appreciate, honor, be true to who they are, and pass that down to their children. My mom instilled a lot of values into those girls, so I know it will continue.
My mom, she taught me, and I'm sure she was taught by my grandmother, and it runs in our DNA, in our genes. Then this idea came to have something to connect everybody together, show our heritage, but this project, what we hope is going to be our peace ambassador to the world, which will show how we can all be connected together. And Threads of Diaspora, because we as Palestinians, we are spread around the world. So people it's like threads, connecting everybody. And also here in Edmonton and Canada, we are all coming from different countries. To me, stitching is like a sacred art. You feel that when you're stitching, I'm connecting to my grandmother.
We decided to make smaller patterns so we can easily teach those students that want to come and learn. And from there, it came to us this idea of building a bigger project to reach out to the whole community and make everybody part of it. So we decided to make a lot of patterns and approach all these community people, and everybody was welcoming the idea, and they participated in the project. Each piece is a different design. It's not as any other design. And each piece represents the person's story. The first phase was 441 pieces. The second phase was the names of all the cities and villages of all these people that have contributed to this project, and even if not. And then phase 3 is in color. That shows that the connection between us Palestinians and the world. We have Ukrainian people from here, we have indigenous designs, we have Indian designs and Indian colors, we have every color that represent the other communities that have participated in this project. Phase 4 is a continuous of phase 3, but with the effect of what's happening right now. You will see a lot of symbols from the situation that we are in right now with the situation in Gaza. So people wanted to share their pain or share their care or share their love. What better way to resist than the silent resistance of cross-stitching? Is it silent? No. We're saying a lot, but through patterns. And this has been happening for years, before we even started it. There's so many dresses and thobes, even in museums, that have the flag and the Aqsa Mosque and the map, and it says we will never surrender, we will never give up.
My name is Vivian. I'm an interdisciplinary artist from Edmonton, Canada. I make work in creative photography and 3D render. I usually describe my work as somewhere between 2D and 3D, 2D being photography and graphic work dominating that flat viewing plane, and then 3D art kind of linking the digital space with built installations where people can actually walk through them. The duality of that in-person experience and digital space, the realism and surrealism, and nostalgia and futurism, those are all themes that I explore in my work. I've been working on a project called Bowl Cuts and Bao Zhao Zhang since spring of 2022. It started as a spotlight on my mom's career as a hairdresser and my experiences getting haircuts at home, and how Asian beauty plays a role in my identity. My ode to Chinatown salons became something bigger for Chinatown as a whole. There are a couple spots that I wanted to render, one being a bakery that is no longer there, but my parents and I used to go almost every weekend to buy baked goods, bread, Hong Kong style buns, and our birthday cakes as well were bought from there. The second spot is the Chinese medicine store, which my parents still go to, and they have specialty herbs and dry goods. I remember the uncle there used to give us hot flakes whenever we were waiting for our parents to shop. After school, my sister and I would go to the salon and wait for my mom to get off, and while we were watching all the aunties run around, helping customers, sweeping hair off of the maroon and white checkered floors, they would always come by and say hi, giving us free lollipops. I remember being too short for the salon chair and having to sit on stacked yellow pages whenever I got my hair cut, and the distinct smell of perm solution is unforgettable. My mom has given me every haircut that I've ever had, so I remember every bang cut too short, every bowl cut for kindergarten, and every time I tried to convince myself that the box dyes at the grocery stores would turn my coarse black hair into platinum blonde in 30 minutes. That memory of the salon is what sparked the beginning of this project and made me reflect on places I visited growing up. It's definitely sad to see your favorite spots and restaurants close in Chinatown and the streets with less activity. I think the way that I spend time in Chinatown has changed a lot. I don't go there to buy groceries every week anymore, and it's probably a generational thing as well, where the barriers that my parents faced in finding familiar foods or community is different now. Everything is much more accessible, and the growing population has moved out of the neighborhood. The houseless population has also changed how people view Chinatown, but it doesn't mean there isn't any activity or culture still happening there. While I don't go to grocery shop there every week anymore, our friends still have our favorite restaurants that we go to often, and there are young people actively building new communities. I've noticed new businesses taking over old ones with signs in languages that I don't recognize, which is great because the area is now serving a new generation of immigrants that probably need the space more than I do. The Bowl Cuts project has opened up conversation with many others on their experiences of Chinatown and how it's changed over time. The 3D art style that the work is presented in is more in tune with younger viewers and how they're learning about Chinatown's history, hopefully encouraging them to spend more time in the neighborhood, explore their own cultures, and to find their version of sitting in the salon chair getting a bowl cut. For those who are around my age, I think the project brings a bit of lightness to a complex evolution in our city.
Welcome back to our Canada road trip. We're sharing stories from across the country featuring art, nature, and oddities you might discover while on the road. But what's a road trip without a pit stop for a quick bite to eat? Buckle up and get ready for some mouth-watering stories that highlight the flavors of Canada, one bite at a time.
The one thing common between all these chefs is the presence of other strong women in their lives, including their mothers, grandmothers, and friends. These women are making their mothers proud by running successful businesses through their love of food.
You were telling me something about how did you start getting involved in cooking?
When I moved here, I couldn't find any halal place to enjoy my meal. Whenever I go outside, even if I find some place, it's way too expensive and I didn't enjoy the meal over there. So I started cooking, asking my mom, my sister how to make this and that. Anyways, then YouTube.
These chefs are revisiting their family recipes for their communities, experimenting with their cooking styles, finding new ways of marketing, and also training cooks who will become future chefs.
They are getting not only good price but the quality food. Like I've been using like fresh tomatoes and fresh onions. Like everything is fresh in here. I really enjoy making butter chicken because my kids love it. And I've been making halim since past 15 years for the masjid and for the community, just to give away. But now since I have my own kitchen, so I'm selling it. But it was always meant to be for my community, enjoying it for free.
So Minahil, why do you think it's important for women to be having their own business in the city? Or what empowers them in their kitchens?
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of male-owned businesses already, and it's nice to see, it's a refresher to see a woman-owned business because it shows us that women are hardworking and they're reliable as well. And it also just is nice to have a financially independent woman in the house because it empowers the household itself.
Do you one day want to cook like your mom?
Yeah.
These women chefs are not only running their households, but also establishing their businesses successfully with the help of their families and friends.
Zainab was telling me a bit about how did you started cooking and why do you love cooking so much?
My mother, she was a good cook and her mother was a good cook too.
Nice.
So when people saying, oh, you are making a good food, so people love my mom's food too. So.
Okay, so you use your mom's recipes too then in your cooking?
I can say no. I use my base, my mom cooking. The rest of stuff I learn.
Who are your basic customers or Al Burak's customers?
My basic customers, they are Pakistani, and I'm making the food for them like because they love it. The rest of is Indian, Bangladeshi, then Canadian too.
You have international students too?
Yes, they are coming, they enjoy. They are saying I'm making a food like a mom.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Food is a competitive business, and these women have found a niche. They're filling the void of nostalgia by feeding international students, immigrants, and whoever misses home-cooked meals. For these women, their services bring back the memories of meals prepared and made by mothers and grandmothers. Zainab works alongside her husband at Al Burak, and they make sure to create an inclusive environment for new chefs.
I have, I think, 7-8 employees, more than 7-8 employees. They are working, so I can say, so we are creating a job and
helping everyone.
Helping everyone, yeah.
So we are here today with Sonal Patel, and she works at Sri Akshar Restaurant, which is a vegetarian restaurant at downtown.
Yeah.
So Sonal, how did you start cooking, or how did you get involved in cooking?
Yeah, of course. When I was a child, my mother always taught me how to cook different dishes, and I think she is the best cook in the world. And since childhood, I am passionate about the cooking. Sometimes I make different dishes, which is I learned from my mother. And when I make that recipe, I always miss my mother, and the taste is actually like whatever she made.
Local businesses can be the backbone of any community, and Regina's community is nurturing women leaders who are finding their strength, financial independence, supporting their families, and creating jobs for the community.
In the heart of the Plateau Mont-Royal, right at the corner of Milton and Saint-Urbain Street, what used to be a patch of asphalt is now a vibrant community garden.
So on one side, we have like plants of all around the world, India, Italy, Canadian plants as well, Chinese. On the center, we also have the Three Sisters. And in this part, we also have a borealis forest.
I'm excited to see the Three Sisters grow, the corn, beans, and squash, which is from this territory, unceded Mohawk territory.
The Garden of the World and First Nations is rooted in indigenous gardening traditions, not only to feed people, but to heal them.
And to have a space that is filled with sacred medicines, I think will help remind our community how incredibly resilient we are.
Spaces like this are rare in dense neighborhoods like Milton Park. That's why the community groups and the borough partnered to turn this underused lot into a shared garden, combining agricultural knowledge with cultural education.
In dense neighborhoods, we cannot create new community gardens because the parks are already very used, and if there is a piece of land, we need also to keep place to build new houses.
For residents here, it's a new way to meet neighbors and to grow something together.
I wanted to see the progress, so one of my colleagues actually took a photo before, and I'm super excited to see what's the after, actually.
The site is also designed as a space for the whole community to gather, to share stories, and to reconnect with the natural world. Atsafa Padidar, CBC News, Montreal.
And you add the water little by little. It's the way a recipe can be made without any measuring tools, aside from skilled hands. The sense of knowing just how much to mix or add, and passing on that knowledge from one generation to the next is what keeps traditions alive.
If there's ganat kue, you know it's Sunday in Kahnawake. Restaurants are busy serving this staple meal, but I've never made it before.
Whatever you're boiling, you always still think stuff.
So today, my mom is showing me her recipe.
First thing of all, we're gonna boil the water 3/4 of a way with a little pinch of salt on high. In the meantime, we're gonna get our other ingredients ready. And of course, we're gonna make some sausages because we are poor, we don't have steak.
Just doing our weekly cornbread prep, and I came in at 5 this morning. I made 200 cornbread.
Cornbread isn't just a family thing. Most restaurants in the community have it on their menu. How do you make your cornbread?
So I do my mixture of the masa and oatmeal, and then kidney beans. I drain them and mix it all, and then I bind it all with hot water, and I just form it into the cornbread. Well, we boil pots by pots, so there's about 20 cornbread in the pot. We usually have about 4 pots going, and I have a giant pot on the stove right now that has 50 in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
In fact, this is the store's busiest day of the week. The takeout window is non-stop.
This is the way we used to make it. I was taught how to make it.
How do you know when it's the right consistency?
When there's no water. See? And this is really hot, so don't go and touch it with your hands. This is the secret, okay? Cold water on your hands, okay? Before I touch the cornbread.
Look how beautiful it is. We made our cornbread using corn that was grown in the community.
See, look, it's really...
But most people in Kahnawake today use masa and oats from the grocery store.
We need land to plant corn, beans, and squash. But it's not just land, because you also need the knowledge systems to be able to do that. And then you also need the people to do different parts of the work, you know. So colonization has severely impacted that by removing us from traditional territories, stealing land, not honoring agreements. The fact that today, in reality, people are eating this food and Celebrating its cultural significance means that in our minds it remains important.
So we like a lot of gravy, so we're making a big thing of gravy here. We use the tea, and it just gives extra flavor to, it's a secret ingredient. Okay, gonna see you after your job.
I think this is the most gravy I've ever made.
Perfect gravy.
There is a revival of traditional food practices. A not-for-profit movement is working on initiatives to promote food sovereignty. They planted a garden with traditional white corn, beans, and squash.
We're volunteers in our community that are trying to bring back our foods from the past and to regrow it in our community and to have nutritious food and healthier food, organic food, and also to show the next generation how this is done.
It's a variety that was here in Kahnawake a long time ago.
Stephen McCumber is one of the knowledge keepers involved with the garden. You won't find masa in his cornbread, but you might find berries, hickory nuts, or pecans. Talking a little bit about cornbread, what do you like about it?
What I like about it, wow. It brings a lot of childhood memories because I remember a long time ago in the different neighborhoods in Kahnawake, there was different people, and in fact, a lot of it was older ladies that made cornbread, and people went there, they had little pails, and they went to buy cornbread. I think they were maybe about 50 cents a cake at that time. I would encourage everybody, if they're able to, you know, to plant what they can. You know, we got to bring back the backyard gardens. I don't really believe in lawns. I believe that you could have a garden instead of a lawn. You can't eat your lawn, but you can eat your garden.
I had this new appreciation for cornbread. It was a lot easier than I expected to make. And it just, even though it's a simple recipe, it just reminds me of home. And I think that rings true for a lot of our community members and makes sense why this food has been so resilient over the years.
As Canadians, we're lucky to be surrounded by nature. From the tides of the Bay of Fundy to the towering peaks of the Rockies, each region offers something breathtaking. It wouldn't be a road trip without stopping to admire some of these natural wonders. Let's jump back in with a rare glimpse of one of BC's most mysterious residents, the elusive spirit bear.
Canada is the most beautiful country in the world, and just to be around a bear like this, BC's most famous iconic bear, the spirit bear of British Columbia, it was really, really special moment. I've lived on the BC coast for many years, and I've become, good friends with many of the First Nations up and down the coast. And Marvin Robinson of the Gitgat First Nation called me and said, I need you to come here and help me celebrate this place, help us protect it. And he took me to this beautiful creek. All of a sudden you see this white ghost come out of the forest, and I was so caught up in the moment that I was 3 feet away from it. And I was just like, this is it. Really is sort of an out-of-body experience. And I have to go through my camera later just to make sure that I wasn't dreaming up that I had a spirit bear, a meter away from me. It just really is a powerful, powerful moment. I have traveled all around the world. For 22 years, I shot for National Geographic in almost every corner of the world. And every time I come home, I'm like, Canada really is so rich. And I just need to constantly remind people with my camera of how beautiful this country is. Just the peace and the calm and the beauty of it all is just really one of the greatest gifts.
You are not wrong. Thank you for the gift of those photos. There are only between 50 and 150 of those spirit bears around in the BC population. And here's something I didn't know. They're actually black bears, but they have one recessive gene that is responsible for their coloring.
At this community center on Fort Peck Indian Reservation in Montana, two nations across international borders unite for a feast. The visitors are from Mosquito Grizzly Bears Head Lean Man First Nation in Saskatchewan, and they're about to receive a generous gift from the Fort Peck community. A family of 11 Yellowstone bison. It's taking extensive paperwork and medical testing to make sure the bison are in good health, but the transfer is finally happening.
We felt so strongly that we needed to share our buffalo. And so here in the United States, we've been doing that for several years. But about 2.5 years ago, we were talking about it would really be nice to be able to take it up north and share with our relatives up north. And it's critical for our health of the buffalo and that we have genetic diversity.
The Fort Peck Reservation was one of the first to sign the Buffalo Treaty. It pledges to preserve the buffalo and buffalo teachings through conservation.
So this exchange between our nation and our relatives up north, the other nation up there, is critically important because it opens the doorway that had been closed to us before.
This historic event.
Mosquito Grizzly Bears Head Lean Man Chief Tanya Stone followed the bison caravan from the U.S. to their new home in Saskatchewan. She says the reconnection of the two Nakota communities is important, as our nation struggles with language, culture, and social issues.
I truly believe that if we come together as a Nakota people and nation to nation and alliances, it just builds and strengthens us as a people.
She sees the bison as an educational tool, as young men in her community will take care of them. They're also a source of food sovereignty, improving the health of members.
I think it's a significant, meaningful just opportunity for the nation. We're learning, we're young, we have a young leadership, we have students that witnessed today the buffalo transfer, and we'll all be able to grow old with the buffalo.
Stone says this was a dream come true for many people, a vision that became a reality. Louise Big Eagle, CBC News, Mosquito Grizzly Bears Head Lean Man First Nation.
Just how grand and glorious they look. It's amazing. And today we're here to catch a glimpse of the iceberg that's landed at Fairyland.
It's my first time seeing like a one that big. I've never seen an iceberg that big before. I just was surprised, very surprised.
So we've been standing here now waiting and waiting for the fog to dissipate, and now it has, and now it's there, and it's beautiful.
We always wanted to see one that size, so to actually be able to experience it was really cool.
They're like a big chunk of ice and like they float in the water and penguins like can go on them. I like icebergs a lot.